Hey Boricua, stop for a second and listen to this, because what I'm about to tell you right now is going to leave you glued to your seat. Imagine a guy born on the hottest border between the Dominican Republic and Haiti, a place where smuggling is like breathing, where everyone knows the line between legal and illegal is very blurry. This kid grows up seeing how merchandise moves through there. He joins the army thinking he's gonna be a regular soldier, but no, he discovers the business of the century. He starts bringing in cocaine from Colombia and Venezuela, tons and tons of it, passing through the Dominican Republic and Haiti, straight to Puerto Rico as if it were his backyard, and from there to the streets of New York. He becomes a captain, amasses a fortune estimated at $2 billion. $2 billion, brother! He rubs elbows with presidents, generals, and politicians from all parties who lick his boots in exchange for donations and campaign financing. They call him El Don, and he himself years later lets it slip without shame. I was the father of all those capos, all of them. When I say all of them, I mean all of them. A man who says he never used violence in his country, but who moved the white powder like no one else. But watch out, the DEA had him in their sights, and one day he falls with 1,387 kilos of cocaine. He is extradited, tried in the United States, serves his sentence, returns, and keeps talking, accusing the big shots, saying they stole money from him, that he financed everyone. This is the story of Quirino Ernesto Paulino Castillo, the king of Dominican drug trafficking who used Puerto Rico as the perfect bridge to the mainland. Do you want to know how a border military man becomes a street legend? How he evades the law for years with protection from above? How he falls spectacularly and then returns as if nothing happened? Stay with me, because every detail of this thing is crazier than the last. It's gonna blow your mind, and you won't want to stop until the end. Hey family, before we dive headfirst into this story that's going to blow your mind, tell me quickly in the comments, where are you watching me from today? Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, New York, Miami, Spain. I want to know where the people who like these street stories are. Leave me your flag or your city below, give it a like if you're ready for what's coming, and subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Let's get into it. Origins on the border? Let's get straight to the point, because to understand Quirino you have to go back to where it all started. Quirino Ernesto Paulino Castillo was born on the 8th of September 1960 in Comendador, which is the head of the Elias Piña province, right next to the border with Haiti. Son of Zaira Castillo Ramirez, a retired nurse who worked hard, and Quirico Montas Paulino, a rice entrepreneur who knew how to make money from the land. He has a brother, Quirino Paulino Castillo, who did study and became a mechanical engineer. His uncles are also figures in the area. Euclides Castillo Ramirez, a former military man who was tried for drug trafficking, a renowned agricultural producer, and someone who served as the mayor of Elias Piña twice. And Rafael Castillo Ramirez, a major agricultural producer and president of the Comendador factory, where Quirino himself was a shareholder. Quirino is not known to have formal academic studies, no university or diplomas, but that didn't stop him. He grows up on that border where illegal trade with Haiti is the daily bread, where people cross everything without many questions. There he learns the tricks, sees how things move, and soon understands that there is more money in the forbidden than in the legal. But Quirino doesn't just stay on the family farm. He starts investing heavily. Motels for discreet meetings, entertainment centers where money is laundered, modern factories to disguise operations, and he controls 80% of the buses going to Elias Piña. Later he expands to San Juan de la Maguana, where he sets up the most modern cattle farm in the country, a perfect facade for his moves. And he doesn't stop there. He reaches Santo Domingo with a modern gas station and a vehicle importing and distributing company, probably to bring in and move merchandise without raising suspicion. All this while building deep links with high-level military and politicians, those who help him evade the law for years. He begins his military career in 1,978 inches the National Army, but then in 1996, he moves to the Dominican Air Force as a sergeant. He returns to the Army with the rank of Sergeant Major on the 9th of March 2002. But look at the detail. Only 5 months later, on the 1st of August 2002, he is fired by order of the Army Chief Manuel Ernesto Polanco Salvador. However, a year later, when Jorge Radameso Rios Una replaces Polanco, they reinstate him and promote him to first lieutenant by direct instructions from President Hipólito Mejía. Since he was young, Quirino already showed a liking for Bani. Between 1977 and 1979, when he was a fleje, skinny kid, he studies diesel and automotive mechanics at the Vocational School of Bani, one of its first students. Years later, at 60 years old with 2 engineer sons, and after returning from serving his sentence in 2015, he says he lives peacefully in Bani in a house he has owned for 35 years. He says he's not in the mix, that he only visits his mother and his descendants, that he works hard and doesn't go around causing trouble. But deep down, that skinny kid from the border was already building the path to becoming El Don, the one who years later would admit bluntly, "I was a capo of capos," the father of all those capos they mention, of all of them. And the story, as he says, is there and cannot be denied. Military rise and first businesses. Let's continue with how Quirino begins to rise in the military world, because this is key to understanding how a guy from the border builds an empire under the radar. It all starts in 1978 when he enters the National Army, but not as a simple recruit. Even from a young age, he shows ambition, learning the system from the inside. But then, in 1996, he makes a jump and moves to the Dominican Air Force with the rank of sergeant, expanding his contacts in the armed forces. And later he returns to the National Army on the 9th of March 2002 as a sergeant major, a position that gives him real authority. Imagine that, from the dusty border to military commands. But Quirino doesn't sleep. He soon discovers the real money in illegal trade with Haiti, that border that is like a strainer for all kinds of deals. Under civil and military protection, he begins to increase his wealth, getting into politics, commerce, banking, agriculture, and more activities within the army. He wasn't the type to stay still. He used his uniform to cover operations, and that led him to head, starting in September 2003, a cocaine trafficking organization moving powder from South America, especially Colombia and Venezuela, through the Dominican Republic and Haiti, straight toward Puerto Rico and the United States mainland, with New York as a main destination. The routes were varied, brother. By air, sea, land, whatever it took to evade. The product arrived, was distributed in the US, and the profits returned clean to bank accounts in the Dominican Republic. But Quirino didn't just traffic, he was a complete businessman. He owned motels where discreet deals were closed, entertainment centers to relax and launder money, modern factories that disguise shipments, and he controlled 80% of the buses to Elias Piña, perfect for transporting without suspicion. Later, he expands to San Juan de la Maguana with the most modern cattle farm in the country, a ranch that looked legitimate but served as a base. And then, he reaches Santo Domingo, a modern gas station to move fuel and perhaps more, and a vehicle importing company that made it easier to bring in hidden items. All this while, his fortune is estimated at $2 billion, a figure that makes you wonder how a former captain gets so far. He himself, years later, in an interview in Bani, lets it out without a filter. "I did what I did. I was a capo of capos." And that he never used violence in the Dominican Republic, according to him, at 60 years old, living in Bani in a 3-5-year-old house with engineer sons. He says now he only works and isn't in the mix. But in his rise, that mix of military and businessman made him untouchable for a time, until the DEA came into play. Political links and power in the shadows. Now we enter the juicy part. Boricua. How Quirino weaves a political network that protects him like a shield. His ties with the high commands of Paris and the military are what worried the law the most, because he wasn't just a trafficker, he was an influencer who bought silence. For example, he donates 2 million pesos to the Dominican Revolutionary Party, PRD, to build school gates in Comendador, but later gives a vehicle to the Municipal Committee of the Dominican Liberation Party, PLD, and makes donations to politicians from the Social Christian Reformist Party, PRSC, in the area. A report from El Listín Diario uncovers it all. Quirino employs the engineer Henry Duval, director of the National Institute of Hydraulic Resources in San Juan de la Maguana during Leonel Fernández's administration from 1996 to 2000, as the head of irrigation on one of his farms, right when Duval loses his job with the change of government in 2000. 4 years later, Duval returns to his position with Fernandez's return in 2004, and then he does the same with Rafael A. Svelti Hermon, another PLD activist and former director of livestock, whom Quirino names chief veterinarian after he was fired in 2000, and sees him reinstated on the 16th of August 2004. Quirino doesn't stop there. He is sworn into the PRD in 2003 by Sergio Grullón, brother-in-law of President Hipólito Mejía, and gets involved with the PLD and its leaders, including Leonel Fernández. He financed the campaigns of the three big parties in exchange for complicity and protection, lobbying for privileges. In a political act in Elias Piña, he promises $2 million to repair a school, showing his influence. But then, in April 2004, Major General Fursi Castellanos, head of Army Intelligence, alerts Mejía that the DEA is after Quirino, recommending his removal, but Mejía ignores everything due to the upcoming May elections. Quirino operates freely, moving coke from the Dominican South to the north to process and send to the US. His fortune hits $2 billion, with properties everywhere. 7 apartments, a gas station, a ranch in San Juan, lots in the National District, residences, a penthouse, a warehouse, and more all seized later. He admits it himself in an interview. I was the father of all those capos, of all of them, without denying the history. He has lived in Bani since 2015 after his conviction, visits no one but family, and works hard. But in 2023, he goes to the Attorney General's office without the reasons being known. He accuses politicians of being lambons, bootlickers, of stealing from him, repeating that he financed monstrous campaigns in 2004 for everyone except Eduardo Estrella. He would summon candidates, give money, but without concrete proof, it remains in a haze. Media outlets debate whether Leonel should respond, but he remains silent. We're halfway through this thing and it's getting good, right? Tell me in the comments what you're thinking of the video so far. Is Quirino surprising you? Do you believe everything he says, or are there parts that leave you thinking? And don't forget to drop where you're watching from: Boricua, Dominican, from the diaspora, wherever. Let me know so I can shout you out in the next one. Drug trafficking operations and the cocaine empire. Here we get into the heart of the matter, Boricua, because Quirino's operations were like a well-oiled machine, moving cocaine on a large scale without anyone touching him for years. Since September 2003, he leads this organization that brings white powder straight from South America, mainly Colombia and Venezuela, using the Dominican Republic as a primary base. But then they use Haiti as an alternate route, and from there they send everything to Puerto Rico, which serves as the perfect bridge to the United States mainland, with New York as the star destination where it's distributed on the streets. The routes were varied to avoid patterns, by sea in disguised boats, by air in small planes, by land in trucks or buses that he controlled, all to evade radar and controls. And then, once the drugs arrive and are sold in the US, the profits, which were in the millions, return launder to various bank accounts in the Dominican Republic, probably through transfers disguised as legitimate businesses. Quirino was no beginner. He grew up in Elias Piña, that border province where illegal trade with Haiti is common, and enters the National Army in 2001, quickly discovering the profits of smuggling. Under civil and military protection, he expands his wealth into politics, commerce, banking, agriculture, and more, using that as a facade. For example, his motels and entertainment centers serve for secret meetings, his modern factories for packaging and disguising shipments, and he controlled 80% of the buses to Elias Piña, ideal for moving packages without raising dust. Later, in San Juan de la Maguana, he sets up the most modern cattle farm in the country, where he surely hid operations among cows and crops. And then, he reaches Santo Domingo with a gas station and vehicle company, perfect for importing containers with surprises inside. His fortune is estimated at $2 billion, a figure that comes from tons imported since 2003. He confesses it himself in an interview in Bani. I was a capo of capos, the father of all those capos, and that he never resorted to violence in the Dominican Republic, according to him. At 60 years old, with engineer sons, he lives in Bani in a 3-5-year-old house. He says he's not in the mix, only visits family and works, but in his prime, that network was unstoppable until the big seizure. On the 19th of December 2004, the curtain falls. They confiscate 1,387 kilos of cocaine linked to him, valued at 900 million Dominican pesos, about $26.4 million. The shipment was going from south to north, towards Santiago de los Caballeros to be processed and sent to the US. They catch the driver Tirso Cuevas Nin and former Colonel Lidio Arturo Nin Terrero, who was the head of a prison and swears he was an innocent passenger. But then, Quirino is arrested by DEA agent Eric Pepin, and they extradite him to the US for trial in New Jersey. The fares under the new Dominican Criminal Code thanks to a joint DEA-DNCD investigation sponsored by OCDTF. After his fall, they arrest more than 60 Dominicans from the network, such as Eduardo Rodriguez alias Eduardito, Vladimir Garcia Jimenez, José Ramón Ortega, Erwin Mendez, Cesar Bueno, and Tirso himself. Many are extradited. Most are in prison, some without lawyers, few on bail with harsh restrictions. Seized assets are worth more than $2 billion. 7 apartments, a gas station, a ranch in San Juan, lots in the National District, residences, a penthouse, a warehouse, and more. In 2009, Quirino admits guilt in court, confessing to sending 33 tons from 1996 to 2002. And later, in February 2009, His brother-in-law Ernesto Guevara Diaz Maconi falls extradited in July after a recording reveals his role as a right-hand man made just before Quirino's arrest. The arrest, extradition, and controversies. Let's break down the arrest, because this is where the house of cards collapses, but leaves a lot of open questions. Quirino, nicknamed El Don, was born on the 8th of September 1960 in Comendador, though the document mentions an error with 1986, 1960 is confirmed. He grows up in Elias Piña, enters the army in 2001, but his network starts in 2003 moving coke from the south. On the 19th of December 2004, they catch him after seizing 1,387 kilos of cocaine, worth 900 million Dominican pesos, about $26.4 million. Arrested by Eric Pepin of the DEA, he is extradited on the 19th of February 2005 to the US for hearings in New Jersey, the first extradition under the new criminal code by a joint DEA, DNCD, and OCDF operation. Controversy explodes over his deep ties with politicians and military. He enters as a sergeant major on the 9th of March 2002, fired 5 months later on August 1 by General Manuel Ernesto Polanco Salvador. But then, a year later, on the 10th of September 2003, with Zorilla Osuna as the new chief, they reinstate and promote him to first lieutenant by memo 32070 from Soto Jimenez by order of Hipólito Mejía. Soto says he didn't know him personally, but the record shows recommendations from Zorrilla. El Listín Diario reveals donations, $2 million to the PRD for schools in Comendador, a vehicle to the municipal PLD, and more to reformists. He employs Henry Duval of the PLD as head of irrigation on his farm after his firing in 2000, and sees him return in 2004 with Fernandez, same with Rafael A. Svelti Hermon, chief veterinarian, reinstated on the 16th of August 2004. Quirino is sworn into the PRD by Mejia's brother-in-law. In April 2004, Fursi Castellanos alerts Mejia about the DEA, but he ignores it because of the May elections. In February 2005, prosecutor José Manuel Hernández Peguero says Judge Doris Pujols Ortiz extends the investigation due to complexity. The trial in New York against Quirino and 20 accused starts in September 2006 before Kimba Wood in the South District Court. After the arrest, 60 more fall. Lidio Nin Terrero, Eduardito, Vladimir Garcia, Ortega, Mendez, Bueno, Cuevas Nin, many in prison without lawyers, bails denied due to no properties in the US and flight risk. Quirino is released in January 2014 by Wood and returns in 2015. He denounces on TV giving $4.6 billion to the PLD in 2007 to 2008. They deny it. In an interview in Bani due to a mess with public works, he repeats being the father of capos, non-violent in DR, lives quietly working, visits only family. At 60, with engineer sons, a 3-5-year-old house in Bani, he studied mechanics 1977 to 1979. In 2023, he visits the PGR, reasons unknown. He accuses Lionel of stealing $200 million from him, calls him a big thief, but without proof like videos. Media debates whether to respond, since he's been repeating the same thing for 20 years without concrete evidence. Perhaps he has a card up his sleeve. He speaks with demons, protected by guards and cameras on remote farms accessible by helicopter. Rare to be a capo without blood, but he insists. Possible series about him, much to lose if he lies. The trial and conviction in detail. The trial in New York is a real movie drama, Boricua, because it involves Quirino and 20 more accused of drug trafficking, all before Judge Kimba Wood in the South District Court. It starts in September 2006, but before that, in February 2005, Dominican prosecutor José Manuel Hernández Peguero announces that Judge Doris Pujols Ortiz extends the investigation in the Dominican Republic because of how complicated the case is, with so many political and military threats. Quirino arrested on the 19th of December 2004 after seizing 1,387 kilos of cocaine valued at 900 million Dominican pesos. About $26.4 million is extradited on February 19, 2005, the first under the new criminal code, thanks to cooperation between the DEA and DNCD, sponsored by OCDF. But then, in court, bail is denied to most because they don't have properties in the United States as a guarantee, and there is a risk they will flee to other countries or their place of origin. Many of the group are in prison, some without hired lawyers, and only a few get out on bail with severe restrictions. Quirino admits guilt in January 2009, confessing to having sent 33 tons of cocaine from 1996 to 2002, an amount that makes you wonder how he operated under the radar for so long. And later, in February 2009, they arrest his brother-in-law Ernesto Guevara Diaz Maconi, who was his right hand in the network, and extradite him in July after a recording reveals their alliance made just one day before Quirino's arrest. The network crumbles. More than 60 Dominicans fall, like Lidio Ninterrero, Eduardo Rodriguez, alias Eduardito, Vladimir García Jiménez, José Ramón Ortega, Erwin Méndez, Cesar Bueno, and Tirso Cuevas Nin, many extradited and imprisoned. Quirino serves his sentence in the United States, but he is released in January 2014 by order of Judge Kimba Wood, according to his lawyer Freddy Castillo. He himself, in an interview in Bani years later, repeats that he was the father of all capos, of all of them, and that history is there and cannot be denied without violence in the Dominican Republic. At 60 years old, with 2 engineer sons, he says he lives quietly, working since his return in 2015, without being in the mix, only visiting his mother and family. But the trial leaves echoes, his ties to politicians like donations to the PRD, PLD, and reformists employing Henry Duval and Rafael A. Svelti Hermon, who returned to positions with Leonel Fernandez in 2004. Alerts ignored by Mejia in April 2004 for elections. Quirino, reinstated to the army in 2003 by presidential order, had high protection but falls spectacularly. We are reaching the end, and I know this story left your mouth wide open. What part impacted you the most? The political links, the seizure, or when he says he was the father of all the capos? Tell me in the comments what you thought of the full video, if you liked it, or if you want me to dig deeper into something. Also tell me where you're watching from, and most importantly, what street story would you like me to bring in the next installment? I read all the comments. Return to the Dominican Republic and current life. After his release in January 2014, Quirino returns to the Dominican Republic in 2015. And although he tries to keep a low profile, he can't help dropping bombs in the media. He denounces on television that he contributed $4.6 billion to the PLD in 2007 to 2008, but the party flatly denies it. He lives in Bani, in a house he has had for 35 years. Although he's originally from Elias Piña, he always liked Bani since he was young, where he studied diesel and automotive mechanics at the vocational school between 1977 and 1979, being one of the first students, a skinny kid no one would recognize on the mural. But then, at 60 years old, with 2 sons who are professionals in engineering, he insists that he is not a man who likes to be in the mix, that he only visits his mother's house and his descendants to see how they are, that he doesn't go to other people's houses or go looking for trouble in Bani, where local reporters confirm that in the 10 or 11 years since his return, they haven't seen him in the street buying sidewalks with 2 pesos. He says, "I've been working since I came back and that's what I'm doing, staying out of the public eye, except for a visit to the Attorney General's Office of the Republic in April 2023, for reasons that were not disclosed." The conflict with the Ministry of Public Works brings him into the spotlight in an interview with Tele 10 and Manaclar TV in Peravia, where he reveals private details. He accuses Leonel Fernandez's group of being behind it, says they stole $200 million from him, calls him a big thief and a pest, and repeats that he financed monstrous campaigns in 2004 for all candidates, except Eduardo Estrella, summoning them and giving them money. But then, in the media discussion, his credibility is questioned. He has repeated the same thing for 20 years without presenting a single piece of proof, like a video of Lionel receiving money or one of his assistants, something capos usually record. Media outlets debate whether Lionel should respond, challenge him to show evidence, or ignore him because silence gives consent, but people believe what they want. Quirino speaks with passivity and confidence, perhaps still with military rank or managing info, protected on remote farms with guards and cameras, accessible by helicopter. He says he was the father of all capos, without violence in DR, and that the history is there. The mess with public works is over a rest stop affected by the Beltway. His house was left in a hole after filling. He built the rest stop as a retaining wall, but now they are closing the passage, damaging his property and business. He demands fair payment, as the state expropriates with authority, but must compensate, assuming 35 meters of right-of-way. He has given to the state before, donated millions to parties, but they take advantage. In Leonel's government, they arrested him in 2004, but it was an international operation. Perhaps the lack of protection hurts. Quirino continues to work at the peak of his age, doesn't go out, focus on family and production. Possible series about him. much to lose if he lies, but he continues to accuse without a formal case? Dear viewers, we have concluded this detailed journey through the biography of Quirino Ernesto Paulino Castillo, a character who embodies the complexities of organized crime in the Dominican Republic, with ramifications touching Puerto Rico and beyond, from his origins on the border to his return after serving his sentence. We sincerely thank you for your attention and the time invested in immersing yourselves in these stories that reveal the shadows of recent history, highlighting his military and political ties, the cocaine empire he built, and the controversies that persist, such as his accusations without concrete proof against figures like Leonel Fernandez. We're done, family, but the conversation continues below. Leave me 3 quick things in the comments. First, where did you watch this video from? Second, what did you think of Quirino Paulino's story? Did it blow your mind or did you already know it? And third, what topic or character do you want me to bring in the next chapter of Bandidos de Puerto Rico? Your opinion is what runs the channel. Give it a like if you liked it, share it with someone who likes these heavy stories, and subscribe by hitting the bell so YouTube notifies you when I upload the next one. Thanks for being there. See you soon.